Welcome to another edition of Goalie Resiliency. I'm Chris Dawson with the one and only Rob Graham, and we got a great guest for you. Some great insight. We're going to get Rob Graham is going to talk to Kenny about gear. He's even going to bring in some of his savvy gears from the Islanders organization. And but first, we went back into yesteryear and a few parallels that Kenny and I have through the Trappers.
And I didn't realize, Chris, Kenny Appleby, professional NHL goalie, what a history, what a lineage. And you have a real connection with Kenny as I was listening to your interview with him. I didn't realize how deep your connection with Kenny was. And one of the things that makes this podcast so interesting is just some of the archival footage that you're able to dig up. And so I think you're really going to enjoy this. And we're going to go to that interview with Kenny right now.
All right, I'm here with the one and only Ken Appleby, and we're going to go back in time and start chronologically with hockey and start really from the beginning. How Ken Appleby started to get into wanting to be a netminder when you were growing up in North Bay.
I think it's kind of a funny story. I don't know if it's the true story, but it's how I kind of remember it. My dad might have a different story that he likes to tell, but as far as I remember, it started when I was younger. I played forward up until I want to say like novice, I think, and then I would always skate back, even though I was a forward, and I'd stand in front of the goalie and try. Like I'd never trusted the goalie, so I tried to block all the shots. So then my dad just recommended, "Why don't you just go in net again?" And I was like, "Oh. Okay, sure, I'll give it a shot." And I think, we'd have to look back. I think my first time playing in net was during an intermission at a old, I think it was a Centennials game at the time, either Centennials or Skyhawks, but it was playing at intermission. I think I got like a shutout during the intermission, yeah. And then I played the rest of the year in net. I think I finished with 10 shutouts or something like that. I was playing on a house league team with Danny DeRoche back in the day, and it kind of just stuck ever since then. And then, obviously, and yeah, it kind of took off from there. That's how the early days started out, and we moved on from there. I never really played a whole lot of rep hockey growing up. I played a couple years of a couple years of A, a couple years of AA, and then 1 year AAA until I was drafted. And yeah,
let's talk about for people nowadays to see, and no disrespect to high school hockey, but high school hockey is very much back when you played was closer to what it's like in the U.S. But now high school hockey, because rep players can't play, it's not at the level. But so people would probably be pretty shocked when they watch this podcast to find out that Kenny Appleby is a Chippewa Raiders alum.
Yeah. No, it was
Carmen Anello Senior was your coach?
Yes, Carmen Anello Senior, and he was a great coach too. I loved having him behind the bench. He even let me play forward one of the games too one time. I don't know why. I think he gave me 2 shifts, but that kind of turned out to be a weird step in my path that I took. I think I had just finished a summer hockey tournament where we went and played down in Ottawa or Toronto, I think it was, and did really well down there. It was like a showcase tournament. And then there was a couple of AAA teams interested in me that were located in Ottawa. I think their coach was the coach of our showcase team, so they were trying to get me to come down there. I'd missed the tryouts here in North Bay for A or AA, AAA, because we were down in Ottawa looking for places to live to possibly move down there. And then we weren't able to secure a house. Something didn't work out. I don't think my parents were able to pick up work down there, so it didn't work out. And by that time, seasons were starting up. But Chippewa, they were just bringing back their hockey program to the school, and it was my first year in this grade 9 at Chippewa. So they let me. They were looking for players, and I said, I guess we're playing high school this year, and I didn't really know what to expect, but I remember all the guys on that team, and it was a very fun year. I mean, I don't think I won one game, but my partner won 2 games, I think.
Did you not? I remember Colton Point talking about it. Did you not have a game where you were? I mean, I don't know if they were keeping the stats, but you were getting close to the century mark in some of the games, shots wise. By some of the better teams in the league that year.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. We didn't. I couldn't tell you. Like that year, I just tried to, not really think about it a whole lot. But I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure there are some pretty high volume games that I had there.
What happened in the following year? It was your only year of midget AAA. What did you do that year, do you think, that really obviously got the attention of OHL teams, and and then we can get into the junior trapper stuff, affiliating with the team that my first year as a president and GM of a team. But tell me a little bit about that midget year and how much, obviously that was a big step forward in your development that season.
Yeah, that was a huge year. I mean, that was my one and only year of AAA hockey. It was, I think, a important part of like what helped me, get better throughout the season, because I wasn't even the starter starting out that year. We had Mitch Knight, who was a great goalie in AAA, and it was his second year at AAA. I was first year, so he was the starter, and he got the majority of the starts. But working with the team there, and I think we had credit to Todd Robillard. He was out there with me every practice. So that was kind of my first time getting really like some sort of goaltending instruction. Before then, I never really went to goalie schools or did all that. Just timing. My parents liked to put me in other sports, and
what other sports did you play?
Well, and all through high school, I played volleyball, basketball,
makes sense.
Track and field. Makes sense. Yeah, track and field. I like to do it all. I played a lot of soccer too. So a lot of times, and my sister was also a very good athlete as well. So they were going to tournaments and all that, and there's only so much to give to each child. So they didn't always have the means to support my hockey, to send me to all these camps and these goalie camps. So that year really helped me, working with a full-time goalie coach and actually just getting a full year of AAA hockey. So working with John Couch there, he was their coach that year, and we had a really good team, and that was a lot of fun, and yeah, it's a good thing.
And we'll talk about it. You got a chance to affiliate with the junior trappers, and I mean, this is kind of embarrassing. Two embarrassing points. The year after that and this one is you were our third string goalie. You never got a chance. I know your dad talked, and we were trying to find a game to get you in at the end of the year. We didn't, but you practiced a lot with the junior trappers that season. But in the team picture, Landon Noel was away, and a goalie who ended up going and playing in the NHL is sitting with the team that I'm with, and we took his head off and we put Landon's on, and that's the credit to some Photoshop beauty by Dennis Dubois. And we'll show you that picture. You can't even tell. It's pretty impressive. I sent you the text of it.
Yeah.
But anyways, I hope you don't feel I didn't make you feel embarrassed by bringing up that story, but it is kind of funny. The guy goes and makes the NHL, and we go and edit him out of the team picture.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I looked at that picture. I said, "Those are my pads. That's not my face there." But
awesome.
Yeah.
The next year, again, you had some choices. You came out to our junior trappers camp, and your partner was there. And another one where I kind of put on the spot here. We had to make a choice, and it's tough when you're a 16-year-old goalie coming into junior for the first time. And Mitchell had a couple years of midget, and we ended up taking Mitchell to over Ken, and you went and signed with Kirkland Lake. And we're going to show some video. You actually playing against your old team, some of your guys, and you end up actually. Danny throws the net over top of you at one point here. It's coming up here right there.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, as soon as I see this, I get a flashback. I remember that moment, and I just looked up, I looked up at Dan. You could see in the video too.
Oh, but this
We
is
got a good laugh out
This
of
is
that.
this is what you want to see, and this is we talked to you in another episode, Garrett Forrest and the swagger. You're only 16 years old. I love this. Watch this save, everybody. Watch the save. The save right here. We'll get you to comment on it here. But watch this. Watch with the hand here. There you go. There's some swagger, some Kenny Appleby swagger at 16 years old.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what that was like as a 16-year-old. Think of 2 years earlier, you were playing high school hockey with Chippewa. Fast forward, just over another year in between. Now you're playing junior hockey with an expansion team. And that actually ended up changing names mid-season and changing ownership. You went for the Blue Devils to the Gold Miners, which is the name that they go by now.
Yeah. I mean, quick comment about the video. I look at that. It's funny. Like, I don't even recognize that guy that I see there. Like, it just the level of confidence that I had back there is like, someone needs to humble this guy. It's funny. Awesome. It's funny watching that again. But no, that year, it was kind of a roller coaster for me, finishing AAA and then being drafted. I got drafted pretty high, so the plan was for Oshawa. They knew that they weren't going to need me my first year of eligibility, so they were trying to find originally somewhere close for me to play, either with the Whitby Fury or Cobourg Cougars, which are very close to them in proximity. So I attended both of their tryouts, and I got cut actually from both of their tryouts. It was fair. There was some very good goalies there, and I just clearly wasn't ready. So then I came up and tried out with you guys, with the Trappers.
And that's the weird part about hockey, and where your partner was, I know you guys always battle for ice time, but you guys were fighting for the same job in that season.
Yeah. No, that was that happens so much where you're cheering for a guy, but you're trying to take his spot. But that kind of made it tough because Mitch Snyder and I, we were very close, playing the year before together. But and then same kind of thing. When I went to those the Trappers tryouts, I think there's a few older guys ahead of me that you guys, I think you might have had one guy returning, and then you're trying to fill that last spot. And with Mitch being older, I think it just kind of made more sense, and so I kind of moved on from there. And
I can't tell you, during the season we talked about a lot. Man, look at Kenny. Like, did we just let this guy get away? Like, I mean, you did. I will say you had a great year, and I mean that swagger that you laugh about, you had it. Like, you came in and you know what? I always say it even to our goalies on the Voodoos, or whether it's goalies or players. Like, you have to have that confidence. Mike McIver has that as a young rookie goalie. Wraith Smith is a forward who played with the Voodoos. Tons of confidence as a 16-year-old, and he got knocked down, as at 16-year-old in junior hockey. You get humbled from time to time, but that the confidence is important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is a huge thing. Like, it's a fine line that I try to toe, where maybe I'm quietly confident in my own head. I try to sometimes be a little more humble, or don't show it, but obviously there in the video you could see I was doing a little bit of hot dogging, as they would say.
It's all right, man. It was funny.
It's important to have that. Definitely, it's important to have that confidence in yourself, and that's that's what I think a lot of the guys at NHL level is. Guys like McDavid, they know that they're really good. They know that they're the best in the world, but they're not always going to tell you that. But they'll just go out there and show it to you. That's all.
How many times you play? You would have played. You guys were you right around the time when he was 16? You were on your really good team, obviously, in 2015, 14, 15. Would that have been? Yeah, you'd have been 17, I think. Then,
no,
right?
he was in the league for all 3 years that I think that I was there. I want to say, but I know we definitely played them a good amount. We played them in the playoffs that year when we went all the way and won the Memorial Cup. We played them in the finals, beat them 4-1. So I'd like to keep that
There you
one
go,
under
absolutely.
McDavid.
Well, and then we can move on after. We'll get to that one in a
Yeah,
second.
for
But
sure.
tell me a little bit about obviously the step from Kirkland Lake, you went on to, battle for your ice time. Like, what's it like going from a rookie to going to another year being a rookie? What was that like, right? Because you're going from rookie in junior A to a rookie in major junior.
Yeah, I think going into Kirkland Lake, when we were talking about that before, I mean, I was fortunate enough where they just kind of let me come onto the team. Clearly, I showed that I wasn't good at tryouts, so they let me walk onto the team. So it worked out great. And that year, although we didn't have the greatest of teams because it was the first year for Kirkland Lake in the league, and there's some things with ownership changing over, but they treated me really well. They put me up with some great billets up there that allowed me to just settle in and make it kind of feel like home. And I got really comfortable up there and just I played a lot of games, and that's when I really started to develop my game. And then I moved into the OHL, went from being a rookie there, thinking, you're just recently drafted. I'm thinking, I think that's where some of this swagger that I had came from. I was maybe a little bit of cockiness, like, oh, I was drafted to the OHL, because you know how it is when you're younger like that and you just get drafted. And then you actually get to the OHL, and then you're like, okay, like now we're at the bottom of the totem pole again. And, you got to work your way up. And I really kind of struggled with that at first, not really playing as many games behind Oshawa, Daniel Altschuler. He was there for the first 2 years that I was there, and he carried the load for the majority of the part.
Peter Goulet, who I work with Danny played for Peter with the Nepean Raiders before he went to he went to Oshawa.
Yeah. So at first I struggled with that big time. Just initially adjusting to the OHL, life in the OHL, the more games, the travel. And then after my first year coming back, I was more confident. I'm like, okay, like I can play in this league. I know I'm okay. And then I think it just started right from the first game that I played in the second year of my OHL career, where I think it was a road game in Barrie, and I had a great game, and right from there I just okay, and that's when my OHL junior career kind of took off.
Again, I didn't have anything to do with this one, but you were up against your hometown again. Obviously, you played against. We showed the video, Kirkland Lake playing the Trappers, but going up the next level, the battalion just come into town, and you're playing against them you end up coming in relief. And anyways, it was a very special moment for them, but they beat you guys, but you came back that next year, and obviously an amazing year that we'll talk about. We have even some video from how amazing the year was. But what was it like for you the following year? And obviously you had all the hype around the North Bay Battalion, and here's Ken Appleby, the best local guy, playing major junior for their biggest rival.
Yeah, that was interesting. It was a lot of fun, though. I often look back on those days and just think of how cool it was to play in your hometown. I mean, it would have been cool to play for your hometown too, but I loved Oshawa. I loved playing there. Obviously, we had some really good years there. But I remember my first time when I came in. I don't know if that was my first game against North Bay that year when I came in the playoffs when they beat us out. But before that game, I think we were down 3-1 already. We were playing here. DJ Smith, who was our head coach at the time, came up to me and said, "Ken, this is your team next year. This is your hometown. Go out there and awesome. Play your game, like do your thing." And I wish I would have done a little better in that game, but North Bay, credit to North Bay, like they had such a good team that year. They had like Barkley, Goodrow, Nick Paul, all these guys that went on to have great careers. And but I think that just kind of set me up for the next year and gave me that confidence, like, okay, I got a playoff game under my belt now. The coach has my back, and it just prepared me for the next year, where the next year we went in, and I think we look back and there was a lot of people who kind of didn't really suspect us to be that good or didn't really have us that high up in the early rankings. But I mean, right from the start of the year, we were a great team. We were coached really well, and we knew how to stick to the systems, play the systems, and then made it to the playoffs, came all the way back up here to North Bay, and I got my shot at revenge, and that was pretty cool. But it's always funny. I look back on those games, and I remember, looking around the crowd and seeing so many faces that I know, and so many of my friends, like my own best friends, wearing battalion jerseys and screaming at me, like just jokingly for the most part. But it was kind of a sweet feeling to get that win, especially even here in North Bay against them to finish off the series. Because I remember we were coming off the ice at the end of the Eastern Conference Finals once we just beat them out, and all my buddies, they were standing over where the players exit and just looking at me. Like, I could tell in their face that they weren't happy, but they were obviously happy for me though. So that was a pretty funny feeling. They
say that out of all the trophies, regardless of junior hockey, and you think about the path that you would have to take, whether it's to win a Calder Cup or a Stanley Cup, that journey, 4 rounds, and then you go play the other best teams in the country.
Yeah.
They say that the Memorial Cup might be the most difficult trophy ever to win. Do you think you could ever a journey like that anything could really, obviously Stanley Cup would, but like it is an incredible journey. Like you go from beating Connor McDavid, and that's one of the things a lot of people don't know, right? You went from beating Connor McDavid in the OHL playoffs to beating Leon Draisaitl in the Memorial Cup. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long journey. But man, is it fun when you have a good group of guys like we did. It's obviously at the time when you're going through it, you don't really notice how big of moments these games are. You're just trying to do your best. You're just trying to perform, and you don't really realize how good some of these players are until you see them move on and they go to these levels like McDavid now, Draisaitl, all these guys, but. You look back on the team that we beat in the finals against Erie, like they had guys like Connor McDavid,
Dylan Strome, right?
Strome. They had DeBrincat.
Mason Marchment, was he on that team too?
I think he was. Yeah. And then they had a couple others. McDermott, who played for the Leafs, McDermott. They had a stacked team, and it's like
Connor Brown, yeah. They had like such a good team, and it's just it's very cool. And then like it just realizes how hard that was, because these are world-class players. You didn't know it at the time, but these are world-class players that you're going up against, and then you move on to the Memorial Cup, and every team has these guys, and you got to beat them one game, and luckily, I mean, I don't know if it was like a 7-game series against Kelowna, it'd be hard to say how we do. I mean, obviously we went undefeated in the tournament, but man, they like, that's another team that was very good. They were very stacked, and even all throughout the tournament, like there is Quebec, they had a bunch of guys on their team, a lot of really good players who went on to play, and yeah, it's definitely a tough journey. But it's so rewarding. It's so cool. So obviously you noticed people in the stands when you were leaving the ice after you beat North Bay. You actually got, and a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people know, and obviously not a lot of people win a Memorial Cup, but you got the day with the cup, and you got to bring it home. Now, there's definitely, you're going to see the expressions and everything, and I think you got the cup right close to, I think it was the same day, and I don't know if that was a coincidence or not, but same day that Jake Smith gets announced by the battalion that he was signing with the Rangers, the same day that you brought the cup. But we have some video of Kenny's visit, and we'll take a look at this, and we'll get Kenny's reaction.
Put her down.
Jesus, smile.
It means a lot. It's pretty special to win it, but to be able to bring it back to my hometown and share it with North Bay and my friends and family, that's an even better feeling. It's pretty funny to see, actually. Everyone I talk to, they'll tell me that they're cheering for the battalion, but once we knocked them out, then they became huge Oshawa Generals fans. So, support's been great, and I've just appreciated it. Yeah, it's obviously a really hard trophy to win, probably one of the hardest, I guess you can say, and to have the privilege of winning it and bringing it back to my hometown, that's very special to me.
Do you feel like a role model, Ken, especially this summer? I mean, there hasn't been anyone drafted from North Bay in a while. This would have been happening a little earlier if you, because of NHL camps that you were at. But do you feel a little bit more like a role model than maybe previous years?
I would like to, kind of be persuaded as that, I guess. I know there are some cousins or little guys who look up to me. My cousin, he's also a goalie and wears my old mask. So, if I am a role model, I obviously want to just be a good one and hopefully just be a good role model for the young guys who look up to me.
It's cool, but it's also my dad's playing for Ottawa back then, and now Appleby bringing the cup home to his hometown and stuff. So it's pretty cool for the town and stuff.
It's still the same, I guess you could say. It's it's definitely something I'll never forget. We have a lot of good memories with that team, and especially after winning that. So it was a great year, and definitely something I won't forget and still haven't.
So when you see that video, what kind of, you got thrown in jail? It was funny, my buddy Aaron Northrop, rest his soul, helped with the organizing it. Throws you in jail, though. I guess that's the North Bay thing to do for the guy from the team that eliminated North Bay. Throw him in jail with the Memorial Cup.
Yeah, it's kind of.
What was that day like?
It was kind of fitting, I guess, right? That was kind of the idea behind it, but. No, that was so cool, bringing it up home here to share with my family. I mean, they were there when we won it, but just to share with all my extended family and everyone here, all my friends and family, and then even a lot of people who, just wanted to see it and kind of be a part of it came out. And that was, I mean, I hope it was special to them. I know it was special to me. But it was very cool. And I was glad. I know, like you said, Aaron, he helped out a lot with that, and yourself, you helped out a lot setting everything up. And
hey, you deserved it, buddy. That's why.
That's
why we wanted to help.
Yeah. No, that was fun. Definitely something I won't forget.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Kenny. You're going to talk to Rob Graham about pro hockey, and he wants to talk about gear, which you're a gear junkie.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll have that in a sec. Kenny talking with Dr. Rob Graham.
Wow. I mean, coming back, Chris, looking at that, hearing that story about the Memorial Cup coming to North Bay, and what a moment for Kenny and his family and all of the supporters. Again, if you are a history buff of North Bay hockey, some really compelling stories there. And it was interesting to hear Kenny when you were showing him and getting him to reflect on some of that. Really interesting.
Well, and you know what? We talked about it too. Even though it's not a professional trophy, the Memorial Cup might be the most difficult trophy in all of hockey to win. You win 4 series, and then what do you have to do after you win those 4 series? You got to go into a round robin, do or die, essentially, against the other 2 top teams and then the host team in a winner take it all for the Memorial Cup, and that's what he did, beating Draisaitl in the Memorial Cup, and before that, beating Connor McDavid, and that's something he's going to be able to tell his grandkids.
And again, Chris, the other thing that really caught my attention in your interview, to think that an NHL caliber goaltender, a Memorial Cup winner, came back and had no place to play and ended up playing for the Chippewa Raiders. I mean, to me, this is goaltender resiliency, and what he had to overcome in order to get where he went. I just think it's a really compelling and a really important story for other goaltenders that are out there, really trying to get to that next level.
not so much history. We end up talking about Rob loves his goalie swag, and as we find out in this next segment with Rob, Kenny is definitely an equipment junkie.
Well, that was a very compelling interview with Chris, and I was absolutely amazed, Kenny, to hear what you had to overcome in order to get where you have in your professional career. Now, this podcast is called Goaltender Resiliency, and hearing you speak with Chris about your journey, tell me a little bit about, the resiliency piece. Were you kind of born naturally resilient? Because there's no question in my mind that what you had to deal with to become a professional goaltender is resiliency through and through.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could say I was born resilient. Maybe I think maybe some of my upbringing had parts to do with it, but I think a lot of it can be just credited to a lot of the experiences that I went through throughout my career. That's kind of got me to where I've been and where I am today, where there's so many ups and downs, and there's so many things that are really out of my control or out of your control that that's just going to happen, that you can't control. So it's just about, at least for me, it was just mostly about like keeping that belief, that inner belief in myself, and realizing that, sometimes things aren't going to happen your way, whether it's getting cut from junior A teams and having to go to a first year junior A team up in Kirkland Lake, or whether it's, going to, playing my first few NHL games and having, playing pretty well in them and then not getting a contract the next year. These things, they're out of your control, but all I just would remind myself was, all I can really do is control what I can control. And that would be, whether that be working harder off ice, working on, working on myself, working on my skills and developing those things so that I can continue to get those opportunities. And yeah, that's really interesting, because I happen to believe that, I work with a lot of young goalies on the mental edge part of the game, and I happen to believe that it's a part of the game that we need to work with. I think it was the part that held me back. But when I hear you reflecting with Chris on that early swagger, that early confidence that you had, seems to me like, there's a part of you that you were kind of born with that ability to overcome versus be overcome. I unfortunately wasn't born with that, and I've had to work really hard on that even in my career. So I would think that's an intangible for a professional athlete like yourself. Before we came on the air here, we did a little bit of prep, and I'm a bit of an equipment junkie. Chris and I are obviously equipment junkies. We're retro guys, and I asked you to bring some of your gear. Now, what would you say your relationship is with your equipment as a professional goaltender? Are you a guy that really gets into his equipment, or are you just the type of guy that shows up and the trainer says you're wearing these this year? I'd say my relationship is very close with my gear. I'm very in tune with the new technology or things that are happening. I like to try everything because, I mean, as you guys know, like the gear is changing so much every single year, and there's so much improvements to it every single year, and I want to try and utilize those tools that the companies are giving to us. So
let's take a look at your stick, because there's an interesting modification there.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, and is that something that you had modded, or?
This was something that I just did this year. Now, it was mostly just injury prevention. There's no real benefit to it, I don't think. Well, maybe it gives you a little bit more control with having a little trigger there, but I went through a stretch the past 3 years of breaking my index finger at least once or twice every single year. And luckily it's just a finger. We'd put a splint on it. We'd put a splint on it or tape it up and I'd be okay. So I never really miss time, but it was just one of those like annoying things where every time it would get hit, I don't know if it was because it would be hanging off the paddle or from pucks riding up the paddle and hitting the finger, but it kept breaking it. So worked with the trainers, and at first you see those paddle blocks.
Yes.
I don't think those, you see some goalies use them, but I don't think they're legal to use during games, at least not in professional. So
Okay.
I had those in practice. And then eventually we just came to this because, Bauer sent me some samples of different ones to try. I thought this would be a good idea because one day I got a really good one to the finger and it nearly took the tip of my finger off.
Wow.
So I'm like, I think it's because my finger is hanging too far over the edge of the paddle. So what if we made a little cutout? And so that's how we wound up with this. And
so kind of like we were talking, I grew up kind of playing in the early 80s in War Road, Minnesota in high school hockey, and the Curtis Curve, the Christian goalie sticks. Do you remember those? We were talking about that. So that's really cool. Let's take a look at your pads. Now, Chris actually has a pair of pads similar to those Bauers that he picked up from Dom, but tell us a little bit about your pads. I know people will be interested in this. What modifications have you made to these?
Yeah, so this is skinned as a hyperlight pad, but I've always liked stiff pads. I just feel like it suits my game better. So it's mostly a mock. What's the most recent Bauer? I think it's mock or shadow or something like that.
I think it is, mock or the shadow.
Yeah, so it's mostly a mock setup with a little bit of hyperlight strapping. Actually, it's mostly just hyperlight strapping, I guess. But
okay.
This is kind of it. I change it almost every year. Honestly, I try to find what I like better, and this is what I settled on this year here.
And in terms of the actual, you like a stiffer pad. Obviously, tell us a little bit about how that impacts your rebound control.
Yeah, the stiffer pad. That's the one thing. I've been with Bauer for probably ever since my first year pro, actually. So 9, going on 10 years now. And once they started developing these one-piece pads, I love them because before I was in Reeboks, before they turned CCM, and I would find, I was never good with my stick. I was never good with, especially once the shots started getting harder and harder. Like I found it harder. So that's what I loved about Bauer, where they're very hard pads and they kick the rebounds kind of out of the way. I don't know if there's any data that proves that a hard pad versus soft pad so that you can cover it up right away is more beneficial, but I find I've had more success with a stiffer pad that kicks the rebounds out further to where a guy standing in front can't just tap it in with it sitting.
Chris and I will be seeking a sponsorship from Bauer immediately following this podcast. Final piece of equipment that we'll take a look at here is your catching glove, because I know any of the younger goalies that are watching this podcast are always interested. Tell you a quick story about Joe Verbetic when I was out on the ice with him and Maverick for a goalie session, and Maverick said get Joe to tell you a little bit about his catching glove, and he brought it over and it had Carey Price's name on it. And I guess when he went to the training camp, Joe had been struggling with catching pucks, and so Carey, I guess, gave him one of his backup gloves. And so I'm not a big Habs fan, but I said, well, it's a great glove, but you just might want to scratch the price on it. So tell us about your glove, Kenny.
Yeah, no, it's funny when you say that you're a goalie nerd and you ask how in tune I am with my gear. It's I think maybe it's a little bit extra sometimes for myself, especially with my glove. Like you see goalies nowadays, they like to have their gloves maybe as wide as it can go and not necessarily always close it to make saves. I'm kind of the opposite of that, where I love closing it. I need it to be closed or closed very easily.
So you're kind of retro like Chris and I, because Chris and I, we need our gloves to close.
Yeah, exactly. So even to the point where I don't even use a practice palm or anything. I've never had any issues with that in practice, knock on wood. Thus far, if it's my practice glove, I just won't necessarily break it in as much, but I'll go as far as I normally always take my gloves home. As soon as I get them from the rink, and I think I normally get 2 or 3 sets of gloves with every time I get pads in the ear. So it's a lot of bringing my gear home. And my fiance, she was like, why are you bringing this to our house? So I have this weird routine that I do where I like to work it in really well, and then I'll run it under hot water for a long time just to soften up all the plastics and the foam in there. And then I'll put a softball or some rolls of tape in there, and I'll leave it taped up underneath some weights, some 45-pound plates for probably about 24 hours, 48 hours or so, and then it's good to go just like that.
Love it. Very old school. Chris and I are old school, and as you can see, all the vintage gear in here. Well, this has been a really compelling interview. I love I love the fact that you take a great awareness in your equipment, because I'm a bit of an equipment junkie myself. But we're going to finish off this segment with a little game, and it's called One or the Other, and there's no choice. So I know you're out on the golf course today. So Kenny, you get a chance for a super long drive or a long winding putt, one or the other.
Super long drive.
All right, super long drive. All right, now here's the tricky one. Okay, we just talked about equipment. One or the other. Chris's vintage Jofa helmet or my vintage skates. One or the other.
I think I'd have to take the Jofa helmet. It kind of
isn't that something?
It's cool.
Isn't that something?
It gives me like Don McHassick vibes.
Well, I'm sure Chris will lend it to you.
Yeah.
And then the final question, Game 7. You get to choose the music for the dressing room. Drake or Led Zeppelin?
Oh man, probably Led Zeppelin. I kind of found this year that. Because all the music now, it's turning into the dressing room to Drake and different types of rap that everyone listens to now, and I just found it wouldn't always do it for me. So we'd have I was never the DJ. They never gave me those honors, probably because I'd put everyone to sleep. But the off day or game where our team DJ would put on some rock or something, that would probably be one of my better games, because I liked how it gets you going. Gets
Kenny,
the juices going.
You are a man after my own heart. Equipment junkie, rock star, Led Zeppelin all the way. You truly are a rock star, and you've been a wonderful guest, very insightful. Chris and I thank you very much for joining us here on the Goalie Resiliency podcast. I'm going to send it now back to Chris.
Outstanding, great throwing around. I'm very happy to see that Kenny took the Swedish Jofa helmet over your speed skating goalie look like skates. But what a great story. You talk about resilience. This is a guy who is in the top 7 in NHL history in longest stretches between his NHL appearances, getting into a game earlier this season with the New York Islanders, being with Bridgeport most of the year in the American Hockey League. But you and the show is about resilience. What kind of resilience? 6 years in between starts. And if we don't have Kenny Appleby in North Bay, the last NHL player to play an NHL game from North Bay was Craig Rive.
Now, resiliency is a bit of an area of my expertise, and we could begs the question: are you born resilient? Is it something that can be taught? I would have to argue, in listening to this interview with Kenny, he was obviously born. He credits his parents. He did have a really innate sense of confidence that was obvious in that video clip that you showed him. And I think Kenny's a really special person from his personality and just that ability to kind of take everything in stride. I wish in my life I would have more of that ability, and I know there's a lot of goalies I work with that certainly could borrow from that.
Awesome. Lots of crazy stories, the Ottawa story too, and everything. But yeah, that was a tremendous. We're going to have Kenny back. We talked about we'll try to maybe get him in his new home, yet to be figured out by the time we've done this podcast, but we hope to get Ken on in his new home this year and talk about some more swag and some more goaltending stuff, because he's certainly a treat to have on, and it's a treat to have you watching. So for myself, Chris Dawson, Dr. Rob Graham, and we can't forget the birthday boy, Mike Brown. This is Goalie Resiliency. We'll see you again next time.